What's up, everybody? Joe White here, and I just finished episode 3. We're halfway through. I got 3 more episodes to watch. Oh, man, this is a lot of rehashing the same old crap. Oh, man. But for people who don't know the stories behind this stuff, for a lot of younger people, um, my son, he's 15 years old. So he knows the business because he's literally been watching since the day after he was born. He was born on a Sunday, and Monday in the hospital bed, my ex-wife, is and I are watching Monday Night Raw, and I never will forget Triple H hits. Now my son is maybe 36 hours old at this point, and Triple H's music hits. This is 2009. And my son's eyes literally just looked at the TV and he did not blink for the entire time that Triple H made his entrance. I remember that vividly. Anyway, McMahon, Mr. McMahon, episode 3, titled Screwjob. And man, it began with the screw job and ended with a screw job. And I kind of like how this episode is a good one, even though it's rehashing the same old stuff. This is a very good episode of the series. Um, and I will say this: I love the way it began, and I love the way it ended. This episode, they already know about Wendy Richter. You learned about Wendy Richter in the MTV thing, and how she was backed by Cyndi Lauper, and all that. Or Cyndi Lauper handpicked her to fight in her stead at the war to settle the score. Big ratings, and Wendy Richter goes from that to being screwed over by Vince. Um, and they tell the story here. What they don't tell you is that um, I believe the Spider Lady was the lady that screwed her over. They billed her as the Spider Lady, and it was the fabulous Moolah under a mask. Um, so they don't really tell you what the actual details are. They just tell you I went in there on the ring. It was televised. Somebody pinned me. I cinched up on a small package. Even though I kicked out, they still counted the 3. Vince screwed me over. And then it goes into that's like your cold open for the show for this episode. And then it goes into where we left off in episode 2 and with the steroid trial. And Hulk Hogan told the federal government one thing, but he really did another. And he got his immunity deal in writing, so there was nothing and it was all signed, so there was really nothing they could do about it. And it goes to Vince, the not guilty verdict, and basically everybody says that did Vince do wrong in this case? Yeah, but do you think he was guilty of selling steroids? No. Was he guilty of giving steroids to his people and telling them they must take them? No. Um, but it then goes into um, WCW, and they finally acknowledged WCW that WCW was around for a little bit, but this really spins the narrative that WCW wasn't really a factor until Nitro came along, which they weren't. Um, and then it goes into the whole Scott Hall leaving, Kevin Nash leaving. They said that they try after Hulk left again. They tried to put the title on Lex, and the Lex Express experiment failed. They touch on that for a few minutes, and the reason why or a couple seconds, and the reason why they touch into that is because they talk about Lex being the first one to really jump ship to WCW on the first episode of Nitro. Um, he wasn't the first one to jump. He was the first one once the Monday Night Wars started to jump. They talk about Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage jumping over, and that McMahon was kind of hurt. And that yes, Hogan did. Hogan even admits it. He gave McMahon a promise of I will never run against you. But when they're offering you that much money for so little work, what the hell are you going to do? And Hogan was talking about how he really didn't. He wanted to go leave and do the movies. They talk about it. One thing I didn't touch on in episode 2 was they touch on No Holds Barred and how the only reason it came off as the only reason why Vince decided to do that movie and waste so much money is to keep Hulk Hogan from going to Hollywood. Let's get this acting bug out of Hulk Hogan's system, and then I want to come back to wrestling. And that's exactly what happened. They even admit it was him and Vince sitting for 2 days in a hotel room writing this script, and it really wasn't that good of a movie. But he did it to placate Hogan. He wasted the money to keep Hogan happy. Um, so they talk about that personal relationship between Hogan and Vince a lot, and how he told Vince, "I will never run against you. I will never be the one to run against you." And like I said, when they're offering you that much money for all that for such little work, and the acting bug had bit Hulk Hogan, but then he quickly found out that what acting really is you pretty much sitting in your trailer for 2 3 hours at a time. You come on, you shoot a scene, you go back to your trailer until they set up the next scene. So it's not all it's cracked up to be being in Hollywood, folks. Um, then they talk about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash jumping ship. Um, they talk about Bischoff and Bischoff. You know, Vince McMahon tries to act like I didn't even know this until recently that he had a tryout with me, which tells you right there that Vince McMahon doesn't watch his own stuff, because that was known all the way back, in that came to light when the Eric Bischoff DVD got released. The documentary on Bischoff got released, and the footage was out there of him doing the audition with the broom, and Vince telling him, "Go ahead, pal, sell this broom to me." you know. So they then go into the Monday Night Wars and how they were giving away results, and they even go to the Nacho Man and the Huckster skits that um, WWE was doing with Billionaire Ted, and I found this funny. They even cut to Billionaire Ted watching one of those skits and laughing his butt off about it. So that was pretty damn funny. How Ted Turner was fully aware of it, and he got a kick out of it. Which tells me that Ted Turner liked the competition just as much as Vince McMahon did. Um, and then they do something interesting here. They catch Vince in a bit of a quandary, where he goes, "You say that Ted Turner was taking food off your family's plate and was trying to, you know, was a business predator, so to speak. But didn't you do the same thing to all those territories?" No. And Vince goes, it's one thing for me to say one thing, but really think another. And I'm just like, dude, you're so full of shite. You are so full of it. You know you did this to these territories. You know that you put these guys out of business. You know that you did the same thing to them that Ted Turner was trying to do to you. You just won't admit it. So that they catch Vince in a big, oh crap moment there. And it really paints a picture of Vince firmly does not believe that he did the same thing to the territories as what Ted Turner was trying to do to him. He does not believe that in the slightest. He believes that, oh, I was a competition to them, and it's not my fault that they didn't have the money to float themselves long enough. But anyway, it's just that was the big gotcha moment, and they, it really, that's the first inclination in this documentary that you get that McMahon is really full of crap and is an egomaniac, and he will do whatever he can to placate his ego and try and twist the narrative, as WWE has done for years, to placate his ego. And then they go into the Bret Hart stuff. We've heard the Bret Hart stuff. One thing that did come to light here, they catch Vince in another lie, so to speak. Vince tries to say that, oh, I walked into that room after the screw job and I just let him have it. I just let him have his shot. I just let Bret punch me. When, if you believe what the Undertaker says, because the Undertaker kind of collaborates with Bret Hart here, they kind of do like a wrestling tie up, and in the middle of them tying up, Bret manages to sneak in an uppercut right in the eye of Vince, and give him a black eye, and Vince went down like a ton of bricks from the uppercut. I tend to believe Undertaker and Brett on this. I don't believe that. I don't believe that daggone Vince walked in there and goes, "All right, give it to me. You gotta give it to me." I don't believe that for a second. So they go into the whole screw job. They use a lot of stuff. Is Wrestling with Shadows in the public domain? Because everybody seems to be able to use that footage whenever they want to and not be able to, they don't give Paul J., who was the director of that show, and he pretty much shot it. They don't ever give Paul J. credit for any of this. So I'm wondering who owns the rights to Wrestling with Shadows. I mean, if you look on Paul J.'s YouTube channel, Wrestling with Shadows is there for free. So I'm wondering, is it in the public domain now? What gives? So there's that. I found that kind of funny. It's yet another person using that footage for their own gain and not giving credit where credit is due. Let's see, what else did we have here? That was pretty much it for this episode. Yeah, I screwed him. Yeah, he went to WCW. And then people think, oh, well, just when you're down for the count, now things are really starting. And I'm curious to see if they bring up Vince Russo in this. And I have not watched, as of this recording, I've not watched the 4th episode yet. I'm going through and watching all these in one day and recording these, but they're going to be uploaded sporadically because I want to give you my thoughts on these and my experience on these live as I've watched them while they're fresh in my memory. They do another thing they touch on is Hulk Hogan turning bad and how Vince gives them props for that. I didn't think they'd do it, and they did it. And they did it very well. They do show the fan coming into the ring after that whole Bash at the Beach deal. And it's funny how you watch every single broadcast of that show since then, since that original air date, and they've cut that part out of the fan entering the ring and getting the crap kicked out of them. But yeah, episode 3, really good episode of this documentary. Golly. No Tony Atlas in this one. If there was, I don't remember him, but no good googly moogly Tony Atlas. They tried to talk about Pekka. So, I'm sorry, but if you cut Tony Atlas out of those first 2 episodes, it probably would make the documentary 10 times better. I'll just say that. And I've interviewed Tony Atlas before. I interviewed him way back. At least it's been, golly, about 20 years ago when I interviewed him. And he was talking about Dick Murdoch passing around flyers in the locker room, inviting everybody to the Klan meeting that night. So, I mean, it's crazy how, it's just what he's wearing is another thing. You got him wearing like I said in the last episode, he's wearing like a cut-off dress shirt with the sleeves cut off and a red tie. It's like Mama said, put on a tie today that I had to go film an interview. They told me to dress up nice. This is about as good as I do. Come on. Come on. You're not portraying wrestlers in a very good light when you got that on your documentary. I'll just say that. They do have interviewed, they don't talk about Black Saturday at all in this, which I was surprised. They don't talk about Black Saturday at all when Vince purchased the WCW airtime on TNT, or TBS as it were. But who knows? They may touch on that in the next episode, but I highly doubt it because we're already jumped past the creation of the NWO. We're already into there was a rumor that they had, I think somebody said, what was it, 200 hours of video footage that they had to trim down into 6 episodes? It may have been more than that, but I'm liking it so far. It's not telling me anything I didn't already know, and it probably won't tell me anything I don't already know. Again, this is a very candid interview with McMahon. Why Vince McMahon couldn't sit down and do this when he was, this should have been done by McMahon 10 years ago. And they did produce a McMahon documentary DVD thing. And that was probably about as candid an interview with McMahon as we got up until now. But he had final say of how that was chop sockied and everything else. Here, McMahon really didn't have a say in it. So I'm curious to see what happens in episode 4. And I'll find out here shortly and give you my thoughts. But that's my thoughts on episode 3. And I will be back tomorrow with my thoughts on episode 4. Let me know what you think about this episode in the comments below. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you down the road.